could move quickly, please, to the next debate. Thank you. Should start, yeah. Order. I will call Liz Jarvis to move the motion, and I will then call the Minister to respond. I remind other members that they may only make a speech with prior permission from the member in charge for the debate and the Minister. There will be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention, for 30-minute debates. Order, order. Liz Jarvis to move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and I beg to move that this House has considered dementia support in Hampshire. We all know someone who has been impacted by dementia. My much-loved mum died in 2024 after a 7-year struggle with Alzheimer's, so I know firsthand what it's like to have to fight for the care and support that dementia sufferers need. 1 in 3 people born today will develop dementia in their lifetime. Across Hampshire, more than 22,000 people are currently living with dementia. If national trends continue, that number is expected to rise to over 31,000 by 2040. Dementia already places high pressure on families, the NHS and social care, and without decisive action, this pressure will only intensify. It's vital we get the system right. According to Dementia UK, 1,323 people are living with dementia in Eastleigh, which is approximately 1.41% of the local population, higher than the national average. I will give way.
This is a massive issue for each and every one of us. In Northern Ireland, the figures that the Honourable Lady has referred to her own constituency, in Northern Ireland, an ageing population, figures are expected to rise from 22,000 currently to 43,000 by 2040, almost doubled, posing major challenges to health and social care. Does the Honourable Lady not agree that to be forewarned is forearmed, and government must make preparations to deal with the growing number by implementing changes to the system right now?
I thank my honourable friend for his contribution, and I absolutely agree with him. The average wait time for dementia diagnosis in Eastleigh is 91.7 days, with post-diagnostic support inconsistent and often inadequate. We must get to a position where dementia care is built around a clear, joined-up pathway that families can rely on from the very start, where a person can receive early diagnosis followed immediately by assessments, access to specialist advice, dementia-trained professionals and consistent points of contact such as Admiral nurses. Drug treatments where appropriate, home-based support, respite care and, where needed, smooth transitions into care homes would all be part of one coherent system, not a maze of disconnected services. More support to stay at home, more support in the community. Family carers should be informed about available support and given greater access to regular respite. Diagnosis must be the gateway to timely specialist and sustained support. Too often it is not. I will give way.
Thank the honourable member very much for giving way, and she's making a very powerful speech about an incredibly important subject. It affects my constituency too, where we've got 1,500 people living with dementia, but on top of that, as I think the member was just referring to, around a third of the people currently living with dementia do not have a diagnosis, and staggeringly the NHS doesn't currently have a target to tackle that. So I wonder whether the honourable member would join me in urging the Minister to meet with Alzheimer's Research UK to discuss their call for a, let me get this right, a national 18-week target from when people are referred by their GP for assessment to when they receive diagnosis and a treatment plan.
I absolutely agree with the honourable member. I have heard from a constituent whose wife has Lewy body dementia and has lived in the same care home for several years. She is settled there and she knows the staff. They know her needs, her routines and her personality. It is by any reasonable definition her home. Yet my constituent has been told that when money for his wife's self-funded care runs out, she will not be supported to remain there because the home is not on Hampshire County Council's approved list. She will be forced to move away from familiar faces into an unfamiliar environment at precisely the stage when stability and familiarity matter most. Families impacted by dementia frequently find themselves navigating a fragmented system, unclear funding decisions, delayed assessments and a complete lack of continuity of care. One of my constituents told me his mum, who is in her 90s, has been informed that her savings have now fallen below the financial threshold. He requested a review from the County Council months ago. Despite repeated chasing, he has been told that it may be many months before their situation is reviewed. In the meantime, he has been placed in an impossible position to somehow find the funds to continue to pay care home fees he cannot afford, or risking financial instability for the care provider. That is not how a functioning compassionate system should function. Continuing healthcare funding must be urgently reviewed. Too many families face flawed assessments that fail to recognise the complex needs of people with dementia, leaving them to shoulder enormous financial burdens at their most vulnerable moments of their lives. There's two... I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I am sorry to hear about her mother's experience and that of her constituents. Many people in North East Hampshire, in my constituency, are facing similar challenges, and I have personal experience myself with a relative who could not get a diagnosis in Hampshire despite many of us as her family members trying very hard to do so. She ended up having to fund all of her care herself. And didn't get treatments that she might have needed. So I would want to ask if my honourable friend agrees with me that the government must prioritise this care so that people with dementia can have continuity and the support that they need.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her contribution, and of course I absolutely agree with her. There is too much confusion and delay around accessing assessments for dementia patients and their carers, and too much focus placed on ticking boxes rather than determining the most cost-effective options available to families. Hospital discharge is another major pressure point, as up to 1 in 4 beds are currently filled by someone with dementia. I have been contacted by families whose loved ones have spent weeks in hospital only to face discharge into home environments with minimal support. My constituent Nicola told me that the consultant and occupational therapist caring for her father said he should not be discharged because of the high risk of falls, but that their hands were tied by the county council. She said the family were told to supervise rather than provide care and to wait for carers to arrive, meaning her father would be left at risk of falls and accidents or left sitting in soiled clothing because no one was allowed to intervene. Family carers should not have to go through this endless battle, facing constant uncertainty about support and being stretched to the limit just to get their loved ones the care they deserve. The ambition of the government's NHS 10-year health plan is to move care from hospitals into the community with greater access to neighbourhood health centres, and that ambition is welcome. But it will only succeed if dementia specialist support is embedded at its core. Neighbourhood health services must include dementia-inclusive multidisciplinary teams with access to specialist dementia nurses. Changes to the Hampshire Carer Support and Dementia Advice Service has compounded these challenges. For 12 years, this service was delivered by Andover Mind, providing advice, guidance and vital emotional support. It was changed with very little notice as part of Hampshire County Council's ongoing savings programme, which is addressing a projected shortfall of £143 million for the coming year. Chronic underfunding of local government has meant that these kinds of non-statutory services are often cut back, despite being lifelines for so many people across the county. I will, of course, give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I can empathise with her experiences of caring for her mother. My father died of dementia as well. We cared for him at home for many years. On a more positive note, I visited the St John's Dementia Group in Winchester recently, a fantastic group, loads of activities, and I've joined them in singing Sweet Caroline badly. It provides vital support for those with dementia, but also for their carers and giving them a respite. Does my honourable friend agree with me that we need to do all we can on a local and national level to support these community groups that provide such light relief for people in very stressful, chronic situations?
Oh, I absolutely agree with the honourable member, and I know that when my mum was first diagnosed with dementia, one of the most important things for her was going to Singing for the Brain, where people are encouraged to remember old songs, which was brilliant for her, but obviously it's not enough. And when you start to get, when the condition starts to progress, it becomes harder and harder, and that's what I'm talking about right now, is that the care that's needed is often not available.
Would the honourable lady give way before she moves on?
I will.
I'm very grateful to it. And in a similar vein to the honourable gentleman from Winchester, I think one of the really important things is for families to know where to access some of these voluntary sector services. And I just wanted to mention the East Hampshire Dementia Services Directory, which I think is a great initiative, and voluntary groups like Dementia Friendly Alton, Dementia Friendly Peterborough. In fact, the Alton group has now its own dedicated building and a full programme of activities. I have invited the Secretary of State. I've suggested it would be a very good visit for him to make, a very interesting thing to see. But I wonder if she would join me in commending all these wonderful voluntary sector groups.
Absolutely. I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. Community-based activities which keep people active, stimulated and socially must be protected and expanded. These services delay deterioration, reduce hospital admissions and improve quality of life for people living with dementia and for their fantastic family carers. At present, there aren't any dementia specialist Admiral nurse services in Eastleigh, leaving constituents reliant on acute services such as the Wessex Neurological Centre or Winchester Hospital. Admiral nurses provide specialised dementia-specific care, offering expert guidance and continuity to families navigating a terrible disease and an increasingly complex system. Without that local in-person support embedded in community care, families are more likely to face prolonged uncertainty at the very moments when specialist help would make the greatest difference. I would urge the Government to consider adopting a new national dementia care pathway backed by clear minimum service standards. It would include guaranteed support across the entire journey, from pre-diagnosis through to end-of-life care, standardised wait times and a meaningful post-diagnostic support plan for every person with dementia. Improving dementia outcomes must also include wider access to new treatments. NICE has ruled that the drugs lecanemab and donanemab will not be provided on the NHS due to their cost. As a result, people with early-stage Alzheimer's disease in England and Wales will not have NHS access to medicines that have been shown to slow the progression of the disease. So will the Minister consider that NICE update the guidelines to reflect the growing pipeline of disease-modifying treatments so people who cannot afford to pay privately do not have to face long waits for innovative treatments? I would also like to highlight the need for greater consideration of the specific needs of people living with early onset dementia. According to Dementia UK, 70,800 people in the UK are estimated to have early onset dementia when symptoms develop before the age of 65. Yet diagnosis for younger people can take significantly longer, and many are left with very limited post-diagnostic support. At their most vulnerable, they are forced to navigate health and social care systems designed around older people, which take no account of midlife responsibilities, such as dependent children, and face the financial and psychological consequences of leaving employment early, as well as facing a terminal illness. That is why every integrated care system must be required to develop a clear, coordinated early onset dementia pathway. We must also address the needs of people living with rarer forms of dementia, those for whom English is a second language, and those whose dementia is shaped by trauma, including veterans. I've previously raised the fantastic work carried out by Veterans Dementia Support UK in my constituency, which provides vital help to former service personnel and their families, recognising the complex relationship between dementia, PTSD and past trauma. That specialist understanding must be reflected across the system. Care home quality and workforce training are also critical. Around 70% of care home residents aged over 65 are estimated to be living with dementia, yet only around a third of staff receive any dementia training. A statutory duty for dementia training across all CQC registered care providers is long overdue. Dementia is not just about systems, funding and targets. It is about people. It is about what we would want for our own parents, partners and friends. I have seen the difference that inclusive, enriching care makes, whether through meaningful activities, music, poetry, or simply taking the time to understand the person behind the diagnosis. On constituency visits to Sunnybank Care Home in Fair Oak, Brendan Care Knightwood and HC1 Chelmsford, I have witnessed firsthand the professionalism and commitment of staff, and it is always a privilege to join Dementia Support Hampshire and the Isle of Wight for their Christmas carols at St Andrew's Church in Eastleigh, a reminder that joy, connection and community matter right to the end. With our rapidly ageing population, it is crucial that more support is given to families coping with dementia so that they do not have to jump through endless hoops to get support, and that those living with dementia are treated with the specialist care, compassion and dignity they deserve. I have previously spoken in this House about the impact of dementia and Alzheimer's on my family and how when a loved one is diagnosed with this terrible disease, you lose them twice. My constituent Nicola, whose father has dementia, has asked me to urge members to think about how they would feel if it were happening to their loved one and how they would feel if their loved one had no one to advocate for them to get this right, to get the help and support. I urge the Minister to listen to the experiences of families in Hampshire, to act on these recommendations, to work closely with the Alzheimer's Society, Dementia UK and Alzheimer's Research UK, and to ensure that dementia care in this country is finally given the priority it demands.
The question is that this House has considered dementia support in Hampshire. Minister.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms Little-Button, and I really appreciate serving under your chairship. I think maybe for one of the first times that I've done that. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Eastleigh for securing this debate about dementia support in Hampshire. I know it's a cause that's close to her heart, and it's also a cause that's very close to my heart. I sadly lost my mother to Alzheimer's in December 2023, and I know exactly what she means when she talks about what a tough time that is for everybody concerned. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank her for the huge efforts that she's making around raising awareness of this condition and for her active participation in the all-party parliamentary group on dementia. Whilst she has today brought the subject of dementia support in Hampshire to the table, I hope she'll appreciate that we'll also cast our net somewhat wider in our response today, because it's important, I think, to see services in Hampshire in the broader context. Almost 1 million people across the UK are living with dementia. Every one of these people, as well as their friends, families and carers, have their own unique and important story of living with dementia. Even those united by geography will have vastly different experiences. Our goal is to make sure that these experiences differ, because we are all fundamentally different people, with different thoughts, feelings and backgrounds, and not because of unequal access to diagnoses, health services or support. As I'm sure everyone in this room will agree, it's vital that every person with dementia receives high-quality, compassionate care from diagnosis through to the end of life. The first step in delivering great care and support for those living with dementia lies in ensuring that they are able to get a diagnosis. Alzheimer's Society recent lived experience survey told us that 96% of people affected by dementia reported a benefit to getting a diagnosis. It is therefore our duty to ensure that as many people as possible can access that benefit. We know that a diagnosis is the gateway to better care, support and potential treatments. And the least we can do is help those living with dementia and their friends, families and carers to step through that gateway. This is why we're committed to increasing diagnosis rates to the national ambition of 2/3 of those with dementia receiving a diagnosis. During the pandemic, we sadly dropped to lows of 61%. At the end of November 2025, the overall estimated dementia diagnosis rate for patients aged 65 plus at the end of November 25 was 66.5%, and the estimated dementia diagnosis rate for Hampshire was 64%. This is, of course, an overall increase from March 2020 due to sustained recovery efforts. But even armed with a diagnosis, many have found that there is varying and unequal access to support. We know that our health system has struggled to support those with complex needs, including those living with dementia. People have braved incredibly difficult circumstances and faced hard, emotionally overwhelming conversations to get their diagnoses, and we cannot abandon them afterwards. This is why, under the 10-year plan, we will make sure that those living with dementia will benefit from improved care planning and better services. By 2027, 95% of those with complex needs will have an agreed care plan. We have also committed to delivering the first ever modern service framework for frailty and dementia. This will help to deliver rapid and significant improvements in quality of care and productivity, and will be informed by Phase 1 of the Independent Commission into Adult Social Care that's being led by Baroness Louise Casey and which is expected this year. The Frailty and Dementia Modern Service Framework will seek to reduce unwarranted variation and narrow inequality for those living with dementia. It will set national standards for dementia care and redirect NHS priorities to provide the best possible care and support. We're committed to a well-supported adult social care workforce who are recognised as the professionals that they are, and the Department is supporting the professionalisation of the adult social care workforce through our recently expanded Care Workforce Pathway. The pathway provides a framework for progression and development opportunities so people can build their skills and their careers in care. We launched a public consultation on the design of the Fair Pay Agreement process, a major step towards implementing it in 2028. The consultation looked at how the Fair Pay Agreement process should operate, including who will be part of negotiations and how the agreement will be implemented. The public consultation on the design of the Fair Pay Agreement closed on the 16th of January 2026. The regulations establishing the negotiating body, bringing together employer and employee representatives, are expected to be laid this year. We expect negotiations on pay, terms and conditions and other matters such as training and career progression will be held in 2027. Once the body has reached an agreement on how the funding should be spent, the Fair Pay Agreement will be implemented in 2028, and the Government, of course, is backing this with a £500 million investment. The 10-year health plan also sets out how we will work towards a neighbourhood health service, with more care delivered locally to create healthier communities, to spot problems sooner and to integrate health into the social fabric of places. This is crucial for those living with dementia. Adult social care is part of our vision for a neighbourhood health service that shifts care from hospitals to communities with more personalised, proactive and joined-up health and care services that help people stay independent for as long as possible. Social care professionals will be a vitally important part of neighbourhood teams, working alongside the NHS to help people stay independent for longer and playing an enhanced role in rehabilitation and recovery. Over time, the Neighbourhood Health Service and the National Care Service will work hand in hand with each other to help people stay well and to live independently. On treatments, I know it is disappointing that the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, or NICE, has been unable to recommend the two new disease-modifying treatments for Alzheimer's, namely lecanemab and donanemab, in final draft guidance. But it is right that these decisions are evidence-based and are taken independently. NICE is a world-renowned health technology assessment body, and I remain confident in its methods and processes for ensuring that any new medicines that are recommended for use on the NHS provide the most health benefit at a cost-effective price to the taxpayer. As announced in the Life Sciences Sector Plan, we're taking a number of measures to reduce friction and to optimise access and uptake of new medicines. These measures will boost the speed of decisions and cut administrative burdens for the system and for industry. NICE and NHS England are doing the work to plan for the adoption of any new licensed and NICE-recommended treatments. Research is crucial to support people living with dementia and their carers. The Government is investing in dementia research across all areas, from causes, diagnosis and prevention to treatment, care and support. The National Institute for Health and Care Research, NIHR, which is funded by the Department for Health and Social Care, funds and supports research that is impactful. For example, NIHR infrastructure investment has supported the groundbreaking DROP-AD trial, which has shown that Alzheimer's disease biomarkers can be detected using finger-prick blood samples. This is a really exciting development and one that brings us closer to accurate and timely diagnoses of dementia. But research cannot take place without the incredible people volunteering to be part of it. Through the NIHR, my department works closely with charity partners in the delivery of joint dementia research, an online platform where people with and without a diagnosis of dementia can sign up to take part in vital dementia research. I encourage everybody and anybody who might be watching this debate to register with the service to help shape the future for people living with dementia. We will continue to invest in dementia research in Hampshire and across the UK. We recognise the vital role of unpaid carers, and we're fully committed to ensuring that they have the support they need. I chair a cross-government ministerial group with the Department of Business and Trade, Department for Education and the Department for Work and Pensions, all at ministerial level. Through measures in the 10-year health plan, we are equipping and supporting carers by making them more visible, empowering their voices in care planning, joining up services and streamlining their caring tasks by introducing a new My Carer section in the NHS app. To support unpaid carers, on 7th of April 2025, the Government increased the carers allowance weekly earnings limit from £151 a week to £196 a week, the equivalent of 16 hours at the national living wage. This was the largest cash increase since carers allowance was introduced back in 1976. This will mean over 60,000 additional people will be able to receive carers allowance between 25-26 and 29-30 as a result. We're reviewing the implementation of carers' leave and considering the benefits of introducing paid carers' leave. On 19th of November 25, we published the Employment Rights for Unpaid Carers Review, terms of reference, and we will run a public consultation in 2026 on employment support for unpaid carers. To help local authorities fulfil their duties, including for unpaid carers, to unpaid carers, I should say, we are making around £4.6 billion of additional funding available for adult social care in 28-29 compared to 25-26. So I would once again like to thank the Honourable Member for Eastleigh for bringing such an important topic for discussion, whether it's research, whether it's workforce, whether it's unpaid carers. We recognise that there is a tremendous amount to do. We've got, I think, two broad work streams on this. One is, of course, the Casey Commission, which is going to look at fundamentally how we rewire the way in which we do care in our country. And the other is what the government is doing immediately. We're not sitting on our hands and waiting for the Casey review. We're taking forward the measures that I've, I hope, outlined with sufficient clarity in my remarks today. I absolutely recognise there's a huge way to go. We do have a mountain to climb on this. We are not going to fix our National Health Service unless we fix our care service. This is a deeply integrated ecosystem, and we've got to get both sides of it right. But I think that the 10-year plan and our plans for a neighbourhood health service, that is all about moving from fragmentation to integration, and that is the way that we have to go if we're going to get our health and care system back on their feet and fit for the future. So it's been a real pleasure to respond today to the Honourable Lady. I hope that I've helped to reassure her that dementia is a priority for this government and that we're going to do all that we can to ensure that those living with dementia and their loved ones and carers are supported and cared for. Thank you very much, Chair.
The question is that this House has considered dementia support in Hampshire. As many are that opinion, say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting is suspended until 2:30 p.m.